Hi, it's Dr. Parikh. So this next mini lecture focuses specifically on small talk. That's something that students in the past said was particularly kind of overwhelming. The first step to any kind of, and this overlaps a lot with the next one on kind of social anxiety, but an important thing to remember is to be aware of what you're telling yourself about what's happening, the way that you're framing the situation, the words you're choosing. So avoid awfulizing and saying, oh my gosh, this is awful, I'm terrible at this. It's, I'm never going to be able to do this. This is always going to be awful. So try to notice when you're working yourself up with your self-talk and find more neutral or positive ways to say, to kind of talk yourself through what's happening. It can be helpful to prep ahead of time. And again, if you feel really comfortable in these social settings, don't worry about any of this. But particularly if there's, even people who are normally comfortable may have certain times that this comes up. And also people who are comfortable may hear me talk and be like, oh, I guess I kind of do that. Maybe that's why I'm comfortable. So it can be helpful to, small talk often has the same sorts of questions. And sorry, today I'm trying to fit as many videos in as I can before my kiddo gets home. I have about half an hour. But conversations often cover the same kinds of topics. And so, when someone asks, what are you studying in school, or what do you want to do with your major? These are not new and novel questions. And so if you're intimidated by small talk, you can start by just practicing answers to the most common questions. And so rather than just saying, or let's say holidays, are you looking forward to the holidays? Instead of just saying yes or yeah, it's great, kind of think about something you want to share when people ask a question like that. Sorry, I should have prepped this more as I'm talking about being prepared. But it might be something like, yeah, I think this year I'm finally going to make Buckeyes, which is a really common dessert. I'm really not doing well at this right now. This is why practice helps. So if, when someone says, oh, are you looking forward to the holidays? I might say something like, yeah, I'm really excited. I think this year I'm finally going to make Buckeyes. I haven't made them since I was in Minnesota, and I don't think I'm going to get back to Ohio this year, so I'm looking forward to it. And then people will typically either say, what's a Buckeye? Or they'll say, oh, I love Buckeyes. And I'll say, oh, like, what's your connection? You must be from like the Ohio, Michigan area, or have family there. So think about, so another example is like a fun fact about where you're from. So I might say like, yeah, I went to college in Akron, and I worked with people who went to school with LeBron James. So, or even, anyway, so kind of knowing the kinds of common questions and taking some time ahead of time to think of just something small that you can share. You don't want to launch into a 10-minute story, but something that discloses a little bit personal, kind of like a hook that you could potentially hang a conversation on, kind of an invitation to talk a little more. You can also, just like you can prep answers, you can prep some questions. It's interesting because culturally, Americans, one of the first things we ask someone is usually, what do you do for a living? Which is funny, my spouse thinks that's a terrible question, and I've heard recently, I think in the UK, it's considered very rude to ask that because it reveals so much about your class and your social status and your income level. So I often try to think of something other than what do you do to ask. So things like, what's something that you've been working on lately? If you're at a party or some event like a wedding, it's easy to ask, oh, how do you know this person? And that's a way to get a conversation starting. You could ask, where are you from? That can be a loaded question, though. When you're asking where are you from, be very aware of who you're asking and how you're asking it, and how you respond to their question. Because that can be a dog whistle or coded language for, you don't seem American. Where are you from, really? A different way to ask it might be, where did you grow up? But again, if someone has an accent or is not white, but says that they grew up in New York City, don't ask them, oh, but where are you really from? Respect what information they want to share with you. It is typically inappropriate to ask someone their ethnicity in the first 2 minutes of meeting them, and it's also inappropriate to do that in a backdoor way by asking where they're from. But at the same time, that's a common, I like the rephrasing with, where did you grow up? Or saying, have you lived in the area long? Or are you from, did you grow up around here? Because it's a little more broad, and it kind of signals that you get to tell me the information you want me to know. And if you want to include, if you were born somewhere else or spent formative years somewhere else and you want to tell me that, you can. If you don't have to. This is the difficulty of this question. It took a long time for me to understand as a white person from rural Ohio, where there was almost no diversity. But I have seen it play out a lot of times with my spouse. I've been in arguments, like I've gone back and forth with like shared contacts about where he was born, because this person was like, oh, but he was born in such and such place. Like, nope, I told you that. So I've developed more of an appreciation for why that question can be difficult. You could also say something about, have you gone anywhere interesting? But again, there is this potential of sort of digging into class issues, because some people can afford more vacations and more exotic vacations than other people. But thinking about questions, kind of knowing ahead of time how you're going to get conversations going and continue them. It's important to give yourself permission to make mistakes and to be awkward. Most people feel awkward sometimes. Some of us are more open about that than others. And some of us kind of close up when we get awkward. Other people just kind of keep rolling with it. So give yourself permission to make mistakes, to have awkward moments. It's just going to happen. It doesn't mean that you're bad at small talk or that you can't build relationships from it. Yeah. So obviously the next mini lecture I'm going to talk about a related issue of social anxiety. But I hope this gives you a few ideas. There's also, you can certainly look up books that specifically, there's a lot of resources you can find specifically about how to do this sort of small talk social thing. You can also join groups like Toastmasters, specifically focuses on carrying yourself and speaking in public. I also know one of the gaming podcasters that I listen to, she said recently in a podcast that she does a lot of presentations and things at work, and her coworkers had recently commented that since she had started podcasting, she had become much better at presenting because she had built skills through that. So social interactions, including small talk, they're skills, and skills, we each have different starting points, and some parents are better at teaching and facilitating that than others, maybe because the parent is more skilled or because just the parent is more aware of that as something to be taught. But we all can work to get better. All right. Thanks. Take care. Goodbye.